Has anyone noticed this weird thing on social media lately where a bunch of pathetic, bootlicking, aristocrat simping, self-cucked rightists are glorifying the Romanov family and whining just endlessly over their demise while completely ignoring the millions of people who suffered under that rotten parasitic regime. That would be weird enough if it was happening, in Russia, right? But these are Americans doing this, which is, well, we'll get to that, I guess. Let's get one thing said first, right out the gate. The Romanovs were tyrants. They were, excuse me, they were the epitome of everything the American Revolution stood against. They were King George III with a fancy hat, right? And yet here we are in 2025 with a bunch of historically illiterate reactionary heels crying over Nicholas II like he was some kind of tragic hero instead of a blundering, blood-stained autocrat who got exactly what he fucking deserved. If you call yourself an American patriot and you don't live and die on the phrase death to tyrants, then you are not an American patriot. You're a cuck, plain and simple. Okay, let's get started. Point one. The Romanovs were feudal parasites. These people, they paint the Romanovs as pious, benevolent rulers, right? Like victims of the evil Bolsheviks. But let's talk about the reality here. The Romanovs ruled Russia with an iron fist for 300 years, treating the country like their personal goddamn piggy bank while peasants starved to death. Nicholas II was a weak, incompetent ruler who bled Russia dry in pointless wars. I mean, that should sound familiar, right? All of that was happening. Sorry, this is so stupid. I should also mention that he took their ancestral homes from them, and there are countless stories of people starving or freezing to death after they were kicked off the lands that their community had held in common since before anyone could remember. Unreal. When workers dared to ask for basic rights in 1905, his response was kill them all, leading to the Bloody Sunday massacre, And yet these LARPers act like the Bolsheviks were the only reason Russia was a mess. No, the Romanovs built that mess, right? The Bolsheviks were there to clean it up. A typical sort of, like aristocratic, let them eat cake vibe, right? Except instead of cake, it was, I don't know, like let them eat dirt and die in the snow, I guess, It's just unreal. I don't know. Okay. Point two. The American Revolution, 1776, was against this exact shit. America was founded on the idea that no man is born to rule another, that aristocracy is a disease, that bloodlines do not make you special, they make you obsolete. So why the fuck are we seeing this resurgence of Romanov apologia? Why? Why are people crying over a family that represented everything Washington, Jefferson, and Paine would have spit on? Because the same aristocratic rot that they fought against is back. It's just, wearing a Brooks Brothers suit instead of a fucking crown, right? Otherwise, there's no difference. Capital accumulation has centralized to the point where we now, once again, in America, have a propertied aristocracy that draw their wealth from everyone else, from you and from me. Our ruling class are the children of the ruling class of the children of the ruling class. Point three, the modern aristocracy basically wants you to sympathize with tyrants. I mean, think about it, right? Why are we suddenly seeing all this Poor Romanov's propaganda, because the modern ruling class, the oligarchy, the bourgeoisie, the imperialists, the globalists, the elites, whatever you want to call them, the political dynasties, the corporate feudal lords want you to feel bad for these fucking leeches. They want you to think like, oh, monarchy wasn't so bad. It was those evil Bolsheviks who ended the monarchy. Maybe revolutions go too far, guys. Maybe the real victims were these rich assholes who got what was coming to them. Fuck no, man. Come on. Seriously, the Romanovs were not victims. They were oppressors. The Bolsheviks didn't come out of nowhere. They rose up because the Romanovs left millions to die in poverty while they hoarded gold and jewels. How the fuck can you think the Bolsheviks were even in a position to pose a threat to the Tsar, right? How do you sorry, this like drives me insane how these people are so stupid. Look, people were at the end of their ropes. The end of their fucking ropes. Their sons were going to die in a war so the Romanovs could get more gold fucking knickknacks. That is how the Bolsheviks rose to power. Point 4. Where's the outrage for the millions of Russians who died under the Romanovs? The serfs who were worked to death, right? The soldiers sent to die in Nicholas's stupid fucking wars. The children who starved to death because the aristocracy couldn't stop draining the nation of everything it had. Nowhere, right? Because to these people, some lives just matter more than others. Maybe they were appointed by God to lord over others, right? The lives of kings and queens are tragedies, and the lives of peasants are statistics. And this is, by the way, this is what really, really grinds my fucking gears. Then these people think that flying the fucking Gadsden flag is all it takes to be a patriot. The Sons of Liberty would have tarred and feathered these Tory fucks, and they would have taken their flag back, and they would have shaken their heads at how easily the stupid are manipulated. Look, this is the exact same thing as the fake left, right? All that matters to these stupid people is current trends and coded language. It doesn't matter that they've somehow begun supporting monarchy in the first nation to overthrow monarchy in history while claiming to love that nation. They got told it was cool, man. So here we are, right? At this sorry state of affairs. And I don't know, man. Jesus Christ. I thought the fake left were cucked and exhausting, but these guys are worse. Point five. We're repeating the same cycle. Right now, we are living under a new aristocracy. Billionaires, right? Speculators, banksters, dynastic politicians, the entire interconnected 21st century bourgeois apparatus. And they are sucking this country dry, just like the Romanovs did to Russia. So they need to somehow get our support, get our ambivalence at the very least. So they tell us we're not working class. You guys are fine. Like, we're not leeching off you. We promise. All of you guys are temporarily embarrassed millionaires. They tell us we just need to work a little harder, and maybe one day we'll be like them, right? And then they conveniently leave out the part where work harder means get them rich and not us, right? And then they tell us that we're the problem, the people who make shit, who make this country run, and not the people who do nothing and take everything. And then just like in 1917, people are getting angry. The ruling class is scared. So they're pushing this sort of anti-Bolshevik, anti-communist, pro-Romanov nonsense to make you dismiss revolution, to make you dismiss the notion that we can produce something better. It's slogans. Revolutions are messy, dude. Maybe the old order wasn't so bad. Maybe we should just accept our feudal overlords. No, we reject that. And this is going to be my final point. Death to tyrants, right? The American Revolution wasn't fought so we could simp for kings. It wasn't fought to squabble with each other over crumbs tossed down from leeches feigning magnanimity, right? It was fought in order to end them with cries of death to tyrants and give me liberty or give me death. The big merchants, the landowners, and the men of influence of that era were able to rouse the entire people to overthrow the aristocracy. So we could say no more bloodlines, no more divine rights of kings, no more parasites, death to tyrants. And if we've forgotten that, then we betrayed everything this country was supposed to stand for and everything that it has been, good and bad, throughout its history. Now the big merchants and the landowners have become a new aristocracy, which is, something Paine and Jefferson both predicted would happen if the state were not used to prevent it. In fact, Jefferson even wanted to limit inheritance to a single family home in order to prevent just that. But, that's a whole nother bag of bananas. I'm going to lay it out simple. Whining about the Romanovs is carrying water for tyrants. In doing that, you spit on the graves of the millions who suffered under them, and you spit on the country you claim to love, on the patriots who fought and died to end such things. And for everybody else, the aristocracy's back, and they're counting on you to stay weak and cuffed, to believe their lies, to keep crying over dead monarchs instead of fighting for living people. We don't even have to be like the original patriots and immediately say death to tyrants. We follow the law, right? And so I say, give me liberty or give me death. Play the song thing.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said. You look like a Russian, you look like a red. And if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard.
What's up, everybody? It's my show. It's Noah's show, right? Why is this thing not working now? What's going on? Oh, did you change the thing? Okay. Here, we'll do this one. Oh, that's not the right one. No, sorry. See, look, I screwed it all up already. We're like all crazy combobulated with it. Because that's what I like to do. I like to screw it up. What are you gonna do, right? Anyway, welcome to Noah's show. It's mostly Sebastian's show. I'm not gonna lie, but we're here tonight, and there's another round of the same tired bullshit, and I'm so sick of it. Holy shit! I'm gonna swear all night because it's that annoying. What's up, Sebastian? Say something that isn't annoying, please.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. I'm sorry there's yet another detractor, but we have a video that we're going to go through and hopefully break down sufficiently.
Yeah. So, look, there are three main arguments people make against the Communist Party. All of them are based on lies. I'm not gonna like rehash a bunch of tired lies. We're going to be instead looking for a general statement on how to combat this for all of us, because I don't know, man. It seems to me that when like a YouTube account with like 100 followers like this has a video that somehow blows up out of nowhere with accusations that have been gone over, debunked, and explained hundreds of times, there's something fishy at stake. And so it's more than people like me can handle. People like you need to handle.
I don't know. Either MAGA communism and the ACP are, the most viral things in sliced bread, or there's something weird going on, because this guy goes from, maybe 1,000 views a video to over 20,000 in a couple of days on this video in particular.
Right.
I mean, maybe it's organic, but, shows the hysteria at the very least.
And I don't know. It's like look, I'm going to make a prediction. I did listen to some of this while I was at work today. But I had to turn it up. God, the guy's voice, like I couldn't do it. I could not do it. But that's I don't want to pick on the kid about his voice. I mean, listen to me, right? But I think all of it stems from a fundamental misconception on what Marxism is, what communism is, etc. And all of it stems from precisely what you guys hear me yapping about constantly, that the fake left exists wholly in empty form, in left-coded language. And if something doesn't resemble that language that they have been told is left-wing, then it is automatically something else. This is a fundamentally idealist and individualist perception, right? And we can sort of get into that as we go through it. But I don't know what else is before we get to that, and we won't take much time before that. What else is going on recently, Sebastian? I'm trying to like prolong the inevitable here.
Well, I just wanted to make a point that connected to yours, and that's that, like, I see two main currents of falsifications of Marxism, and that's either like, people that are way too intent on living up to some ideal in their head, some checklist of Marxism that would require us to skip, generations and generations, or people like this who, Marxism to them is effectively radical liberalism, like ideas that are socially left and right to them are matters of class, and it's just a fundamental distortion.
It really is. And you know what? Like something that kind of grinds my gears is that I don't even like to let them get away with use of the word social this way. You know what I mean? Like they're like, well, are you socially liberal? Are you socially conservative? No, you're not either of these things. You are the worker or you are the enemy of the worker. That's it. There's us and there's them. Everything else is bullshit. Sorry, like I hate to be like, I mean, it's not bullshit. It's downstream of this, but that's the general thing. No, like socially conservative and socially liberal. It's a shorthand to push us back into the framing of the ruling class and where they want us. They want us divided over these social issues. But in Marxist theory and Marxist rhetoric and Marxist everything, throughout history, social has been a word meaning something wholly different. It means involving the whole of society. So when the original RSDLP in Russia, what became the Bolsheviks, called themselves social democrats, they were saying that they needed to democratize all of society, right? So when they use these words like this, it's to me just another giveaway that they're really talking about things they don't understand. You know what I mean? And that's always all it boils down to. Listening to this guy's video, I could tell he was just a guy going to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We can get into it, I guess, if you want.
Screw it, let's do it. I'm gonna pull it up. Let's so you guys tell us, like, how do you want us to do this? Do you want us to like go through it? We don't really have time. It's like an hour-long video. It's
we have like the key talking points of the first ACP section. The first few minutes are just sort of a breakdown. We can skip that if you want and just get right into the meat and potatoes.
What do you think, Sebastian?
I feel like we should just start at 3:30 and we can group in all of this guy's arguments about, like, social chauvinism or whatever, because they all take the same form.
Precisely.
He's going to bring up about Hinkle, about Slava, about Eddie. We've heard it a million times. We can sort of just get through that and then continue on.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, they're all just recycled nonsense. Before we do that, we're getting some super chats, so let's go through them real quick. Before that, it's Starback. Where you been, brother? He says, Noah, the prophetic comrade, miss you fellas. I'm not sure if that banana emoji is what it's for, but I like it. Maybe it's for the bags of them I have in the back. Maybe something more sinister. The only JS, thanks for the 5, brother. And Red Maze, thank you for the 10. You guys are fantastic. Legit, like, it actually really, really helps me dedicate more time to the Institute and to the party. Every single super chat you have, you give us matters. Regardless of what people like. What's this guy's name? Brandon something?
Torres,
like Brandon random numbers.
Yeah.
Right. Regardless of what Brandon random numbers is going to tell you, we don't get mysterious funding that he has no, actual
Brandon
evidence.
Lee 3090.
Yeah, so random numbers. We don't get any funding from anything except you guys. So thank you. We appreciate it. All right, let's present this thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you said let's go to, before that, let's like
the start of it is sort of just him getting into the constitution of the ACP and
right,
us breaking with the CPUSA, and then the CPUSA basically saying, no, you guys didn't. So it's
yeah. I want to go through like just an overview before we do that though. So like Sebastian is, by the way, the best producer in the history of live stream producing, because he has all these key talking points listed for us so we can make sure we remember and hit them. But I just want to go over some of these real quick. Some of his main criticisms is the fact that we talk with reactionaries, right? And he wants to cancel culture us with this. And we'll get to this. But I just want to say before that if you're not talking to reactionaries, you're not winning hearts and minds.
Yeah, you're losing. It's a fight. You're fighting.
Like if all you're doing is saying, I'm very left wing, nobody cares. Nobody knows who you are. He tries to paint us as anti-woman based on the fact that some of the women in the party aren't bourgeois feminists, which is stupid. He attacks us on the grounds of considering the United States and Canada a single civilization by pretending we want to, like, I don't know, invade Canada
because or something.
Yeah, I don't know. And then my favorite part is he says that talking about finance capital is actually something only fascists do. And he specifically says that like this isn't Marxist Leninist. And we'll get into why that's literally the basis of Leninism. But let's do this. So we'll go to 3 minutes and we'll play it.
Yeah. And also just one point about about talking to reactionaries. If you follow the actual definition of what reactionary is, the vast majority of the population is reactionary in one way or another. If you're not talking to a reactionary, whether that means liberal or conservative in your eyes, you're just talking to people who already agree with you exactly. Like,
right.
I don't really know what you're trying to achieve there, but
you're trying to get them to tell you how awesome you are, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that could be it. Couple more super chats. Views of it could be Streisand effect. Ultimately, they want to define us and define away our ability to define ourselves. That's a really good point, Red Maze. VLX, thank you for the 5, brother. He says he's been listening to Parentes To Kill a Nation, which is a great book, by the way. But halfway through, and it's so upsetting how evil these liars are and how similar to things happening nowadays. And you're absolutely right, brother. Look, this is one of the reasons beyond the like random, nobody accounts suddenly creating viral content only when it's lying about the Communist Party. This is one of the reasons I'm so suspicious about this. When the ruling class comes across a rhetorical tactic that works, they do not stop using it until it stops working. So the similarity is, yeah. Bag of bananas, no Diddy.
We're still here using the word tanky fucking 67 years later. So.
Look, and especially after the JFK files came out and proved, like without a doubt, that was a CIA color revolution. Like, people are crazy, man. I don't know. Anyway, let's play this shit.
They are the true and authentic communist party, unlike CPUSA.
Oh god. Oh god, hold on. We are turning this playback speed up. Okay. This guy talks really slow and in a weird way.
USA members were quick to condemn the ACP as reactionaries, which is a
hold on.
Is this just a sectarian or self-described communist party? The leaders of the CPUSA apparently disagreed very strongly with their interpretation of Marxism-Leninism, which begs the question of what that interpretation is. The ACP.
Okay. So, first and foremost, the old party. What happened and why was the old party reconstituted as the ACP? This is what he's going into, right? Very quickly, the old party decayed over the last few decades and got to a point where it was ruled by a bunch of anti-communists. I mean, I don't know what else to call them, and renegades, like traitors to Marxism, who were hell-bent on using it as a way to funnel support into the Democratic Party. This is what it existed for. This is what it had become. Many of us were in the old party. I was in the old party. And at the last the convention, in order to protect the Democratic Party, the ruling clique, led by Joe Sims, basically threw the constitution of the party into the garbage, shut down all debate regarding their active support for genocide and bringing Zionists to that convention, and then began a campaign of purging anyone who spoke out against it.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately we can he said, she said regarding, it being a legitimate successor of the CPUSA all night long until the cows come home. But we can tell quite clearly that all they've been doing is just tailing the Democrats and acting exactly as you've said. So regardless of what the CPUSA leadership is saying, it should be clear to anyone who's being honest about the nature of the party is that in the fact that it's not a revolutionary party. And it hasn't been for decades and decades.
Absolutely. And why would they lie, right? Why would they call themselves communists and then just I mean, they were literally telling me not to announce myself as a communist when I went places. It was crazy, man. But so anyway, as this happens, a bunch of us who were in the old party, including like clubs across the country, they're being purged and they're leaving as our party forms. We're in contact with these people, right? And the 7 of us on the plenary committee were in a position to bring everyone together that wanted to see a revitalized Communist Party in the US, that saw the necessity of the era. And so we used that position to do just that. Now, one of the things this guy says, and I don't know if I fast forwarded past it or not, that's why I'm going to say it now, is that the old party claimed that we did not have clubs defecting to us, right? I want to explain this for people because it can get kind of confusing if you just listen to this guy's cherry pick narrative, right? In no situation where a sort of revolution happens, where a change happens, where you get people going different ways, will you have every single person there? And even if you do, even if we had every single person in every club that joined us that defected, the leadership of the old party would put people in those positions to fill them up, right? And so what happened is the actual communists from those clubs genuinely defected and therefore carried the legitimate Marxist, Leninist, and communist infrastructure from the old party into the new. Set up the same infrastructure, right? These were the representatives of those clubs. And this is the same thing the Sons of Liberty did when they declared independence from the British Empire. Do you really think there weren't Tories in each of those colonies saying, no, we're still British, I promise, guys, right? There were. Of course there were. And many of them got tarred and feathered, but there were, right? And this is the exact same situation. These Tories are saying, no, we promise the club didn't defect. We're here. But the actual legitimate communist infrastructure of that club left the party.
ACP claims that they are the true and authentic Communist Party, unlike CPUSA, but CPUSA members were quick to condemn the ACP as reactionaries, which is a strong claim. Is this just a sectarian mudslinging, or is there any truth to this charge?
Okay. Who wants to put money on whether this guy knows what reactionary means or not?
Reactionary means you upset my sensibilities.
Whoa, hold on. Who said I'm being a campist? Do you know what campism was, man? What are you talking about? I hope you're being sarcastic and I just don't get the joke. All right, so I'm going to put $20 right now against anyone who will take it that this guy doesn't know what reactionary means and he thinks it means social conservative. Oh, shit.
It was at 3:30.
3:30? All right.
Yep.
At the most well-known leader in the ACP, Jackson Hinkle, a former progressive liberal and environmental activist who appeared in a Get Out the Vote ad for
Quick note, remind me to make fun of Jackson for that haircut later.
the Democratic Party in the 2018 midterms. Hinkle has since taken a radical and interesting turn in his politics.
Liberal.
If you take a look at Hinkle's Wikipedia page, it says that he's a promoter of something called MAGA communism.
Oh, what did I say? Wikipedia.
Known for
guy.
disinformation.
Yo, that's straight up based, man. If Wikipedia is saying you're known for disinformation, you're awesome.
And references his self-description as an American conservative Marxist-Leninist. This just creates more questions. What the hell is MAGA communism? How can one be both MAGA and a communist? And how?
Good question. Why don't you look at the hundreds of times we've explained it?
How on earth can one be both a conservative and a Marxist-Leninist? Well, let's hear it from a self-proclaimed MAGA communist himself. In an interview,
speech, and then he gets into the actual points that Jackson makes at 848. If you want to skip to
Okay,
that.
so I want to say something real quick. This guy is confused how one could be conservative and a communist. Because for him, language is what guides reality, and it's all these sort of universal forms that are used in particular instances. He can't understand the relationship between universal and particular. Why conservative communism makes sense in a particular context, right? So what Jackson means by it is very, very simple, right? He means he's not liberal. He means that he cares deeply about this country. He means that he is, let's see, for things like strong family units. He's a religious guy, stuff like that, right? That is compatible with literally most communists in the history of communism. In fact, if these types of leftists here were to actually meet Bolsheviks, they would think they're right-wingers. If they were to meet members of the Communist Party of China, they would call them right-wingers, because the language in our country has been so distorted and so tampered with and so falsified that they only exist in this bubble where everything's been manipulated, right?
View on Chinese media last year, which Jackson Hinkle did with fellow MAGA communist Grayson Walker. Walker explained that MAGA communism is just the application of Marxism-Leninism to the particular conditions in America and nothing more.
But there you go. All right, 848, huh?
830. Oh yeah, 848. Sorry.
You're right.
Oh, I don't want. We don't have to read all this stupid nonsense.
No, we don't have to. Just skip past this until you start.
Yeah, I'm just looking for where 954. Okay.
This is a permitted opinion in the ACP. In fact, here's a woman named Slava Jalili, who is in the Politburo of the ACP, appearing to affirm these views. She doesn't appear to be bothered by Hinkle's views on women, because she seems to largely agree. So again, these views are entirely accepted within the ACP. I'll give another example of a...
Yep, okay. Let's pause here. I'm sorry, I'm going to be pausing all night because this guy is so wrong. So, why would views like this be accepted within the Communist Party? Because personal opinions are not representative of the party, first and foremost. The only thing that speaks for the party is the party. Jackson doesn't, I don't. Haas doesn't even, right? Nobody does. No single person does. It is a collective discipline. We are all united under a few things. Being guided by Marxism-Leninism results in the class struggle. Those three things. Jackson can have any opinion he wants. He can push for his opinion within the party. And that's how it works, right? I can have a completely opposed opinion and all push for mine. That's how we operate, right? We debate and then act together. And frankly, his view of the fact that, women don't need to buy into bourgeois feminism is not some far right nonsense. And this is all Slava was saying too, that she loves being a mother, right? She loves taking care of her kids. Makes sense to me. I love being a father. You know what I mean? Like it's the only argument he's going to make throughout this is, oh my God, ACP aren't liberals. And I think communism is liberalism. Anything to add, Sebastian?
No, you hit the points exactly. Yeah.
Red flag. This time to do with Eddie Smith of Midwestern Marx. Last year, Smith went on the podcast of the far-right online personality.
By the way, real quick, before we go into this point, can we please make note of the fact that this guy couldn't even be bothered to learn how to pronounce my name?
Yeah. It wasn't even close either.
Right. Like it was like not even the right letters. Like most people say like Kratchvik. That makes sense.
And also, if anyone wants to actually look into the comments of Eddie's appearance on the Jake Shields podcast to see the results of a real communist speaking to a reactionary, feel free to check it out, because those are the results of actual communism in action, instead of denouncing, reaching out to reactionaries. I mean, his audience, who otherwise would never engage with this type of stuff, are more than receptive to what Eddie said in there. So, I mean, it's a resounding success if you actually look at it with an open mind.
Yeah, that's a really good point, brother. I think also, dude, who is this weirdo? Like, why is this guy saying the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life? Look. Small cat guy. In a little bit, we're going to switch over to our X Space mode. Why don't you join it? And rather than blurting out random nonsense, why don't you try to argue it with me if you're not a scared little girl? Anyway.
Eddie is actually Peter Thiel and Elon Musk in a trench coat.
That's actually true. But here's my thing. Look, they treat Jake Shields as if he's this like evil mastermind. He's not, right? He's a guy who has fallen down a rabbit hole. And these are the type of people, at least his audience, that we need to be looking at as people who look around, see something wrong, and then get shoved a false conclusion in their faces, right? They say, hey, wait a minute. The standard of living is dropping. Everything's getting bad. Why is this? Mm-hmm. And the false answers to that, such as, the like silly, like Jews run everything nonsense, is well-funded and pushed at them for a reason. Now, right now, that reason is in order to justify Zionism and exterminationism, right? So there's that. But the point is, he's not some like Giovanni Gentile. You know what I mean? Like, he's not a philosopher. He's not a theorist. He's a guy who got sold a false bill of goods. And he was willing to put Eddie on his show with millions of people watching it in order to tell him that was false, in order to tell him, actually, communism's the answer. That's what happened, right? And in the process, just like Sebastian said, Eddie flipped a bunch of people. So when, you guys know, like, stop, get out of your stupid leftist bubble.
Yeah, and I mean, what happens? What's the logical conclusion of us not reaching out to them? Who will? People with either, these sorts of explanations that lead them into Nazism, or the liberals with, critiques that aren't even grounded in reality that push them towards those, reactionary positions, those fascistic positions, because it's the only thing that actually even talks about what's happening, even tangentially.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing. During the rise of the Bolsheviks, right? Excuse me. During the rise of the Bolsheviks, there was an anti-Semitic sort of lumpen movement called the Black Hundreds. What did Lenin and the Bolsheviks do about these guys? Did they circle themselves and just talk about how evil they were and high-five each other? No. Lenin sent the Bolsheviks out to out-organize them, to peel recruits away, to go outside of their rallies and meetings and go, hey, you guys are morons. These Black Hundreds people are lying to you. Us communists will tell you the truth. Anyway, let's keep it going.
Jake Shields. Jake Shields is a Holocaust denier and Nazi sympathizer, and he's pretty open about this. But Smith felt it was fine to go on his podcast for a friendly chat. When criticized for this, Smith just complained about cancel culture and said that,
yes, he did complain about cancel culture. And here's the thing. You're trying to cancel him right now. And let's read what Eddie said. He said, Jake Shields and I don't agree on everything politically, of course, but I do respect him on a personal level. largely because he had the integrity to invite me on his show and actually discuss my viewpoint and our disagreements, despite the backlash he knew he'd get from right-wing members of his audience. I can relate to this attitude. I can't relate at all to cancel culture liberalism. Jake and I might not be in the same political party, but we come from the same world of combat sports. And I have a much easier time understanding where he's coming from than I do with any of our leftist haters. Integrity and honor are key principles that we need to bring back to left-wing politics. If you believe in your ideas, you should be able to talk to anyone. The left hasn't ever been about disavowing amoral people for being bad. It's about fighting the ruling class and creating real substantive change. So why does it seem like conservative UFC fighters are more interested in doing that than the so much of the American left? And that's a good goddamn question, because this guy's trying to cancel Eddie right now for going out and convincing people that communism is the answer.
And I mean, if you actually watch the stream, which I highly doubt any of these people did, Eddie wasn't completely uncritical. He actually challenged him on multiple points, but the pertinent thing is that he didn't go about it as these people do, who just shout them down as racists and effectively just get them to close their ears. Like, if you're just shouting at someone and not addressing any of the rational points or even admitting that there's a rational basis to them feeling this way, then they're just not going to listen to you.
Right. Look, this guy said something interesting. He says, I'm Jewish, but I kind of like Jake Shields. I don't think he's hateful based on ethnicity, but rather just wrong about the roots of the issues. And you know what? Why did he become this like weird anti-Semite? Because the Zionists are waging a genocide right now. That's why. Right? And he got sold a bunch of lies. Like, it's wild, like, that they think they can like just high five each other and do anything but remain irrelevant. If you ask anyone that you work with, if they've ever heard of their organizations and institutions, they're going to tell you no. Right? So why are you circle jerking yourselves, telling you how awesome you are? Anyway, let's keep it going. Oop, wrong window. There we go.
While he may not agree with all of Jake Shields' views, he still respects Shields on a personal level. So thus far, we've seen that extreme misogyny and fraternizing with Nazis are totally allowed within the ACP. I'll give another red flag. This one is perhaps not as alarming as having friendly chats with Nazis, but it's still pretty indicative. There's a fake research collective called RTSG Research, which is associated with...
Did he say vague or fake?
No, fake. What makes any research collective real or fake? Is it institutional backing? I don't understand.
Right. I don't know what that means. Here's where he's gonna like whine because Rev was mean to somebody, so we're gonna skip that.
Yeah,
that's like, I don't care if Rev was mean to somebody. In fact, the guy probably deserved it. I know Rev, and he can be mean, but not to people who don't deserve it.
The next point is at 11:39. If you want to,
let's do it. Let's actually get to a point.
Yeah, he's going to just basically touch on Haas's thread about why Marxism isn't woke, completely not address the actual point at all, and just use it as a touching point to link Haas to Dugan.
Dugan, there it is. We're all evil Duganists.
Leaders of an allegedly communist party. For another red flag.
Wait, hold on.
Is a Twitter account where he pinned.
It was just Rev saying I'm richer.
Why Marxism is not.
Yeah, he says he told someone to put the fries in the bag. Big deal. Stop crying, lib. Okay. Let's listen to this one.
Not woke. Above a long, opaque manifesto where Haas.
Opaque manifesto.
He doesn't even address any of the actual points. He just thought terminating cliche, calling it vague and opaque, and then mentioning Dugan.
And I think this is where he tells on himself. I read this, and in fact, I actually disagree with major points that Haas makes. Right? For me, there's actually something like critically flawed with Heidegger's view of being, but that doesn't matter, right? We can disagree on it because it's not part of the party's central guiding principles, right? This is just something Haas wrote, and Haas is welcome to his view, and I'm welcome to mine within the party. The party is bigger than me or Haas. The party is for overthrowing capitalism and establishing a government of, by, and for the people, right? So, anyway, I lost track of what I was going to say. He tells on himself when he says that it's opaque. What he actually means is, I tried reading this and couldn't understand it. That's what it is. And honestly, like, Haas is a very, very smart and well-read guy, and some of his writing can be focused a lot on people who are also smart and well-read. This one is not like that, right? It's very easy to read. This guy is just, maybe he's a little slow. I don't know, right? I don't want to prejudge him. He could have like a learning disability. I don't know. But why, if you don't understand something, are you then going to attempt to critique it?
Explains his interpretation of Marxist theory. Throughout this thread, Haas cites the Russian philosopher Alexander Dugin. This is very curious because Dugin, who I'll be talking more about later, is...
What was that, Sebastian?
That's literally the only thing he got from that entire thread.
He saw the word Dugin and then went running to Dugin's Wikipedia. And here we are at Dugin's Wikipedia, ladies and gentlemen. Look, Americans don't understand Dugin. Straight up, I had trouble understanding Dugin. He's very, very difficult to understand his actual philosophy because it's like this weird sort of update of a postmodern view, but from the position of the sort of like ultra left anti-communist position in the end of the Soviet Union where he grew up. That informed how he began to think. And then he, rejects all his old, his younger childishness, and he becomes sort of like, I don't know, like a general Russian conservative. Really is what he is. And what Haas is actually doing, if you actually read the post, is saying that if you take what Dugin says and you refilter it through a Marxist lens, you can actually learn something useful, right? And this is very common with Marxists. The Communist Party of China does this for everything. Lenin tells us to do this. Lenin specifically says that in a speech to the youth leagues, that if all you read is communist literature, you are a deplorable communist. You're not even a communist. That you need to, I think he says, drink from the fountain of mankind. That you need to learn from everything, but at the same time, analyze it through Marxism-Leninism. And this is precisely what Haas is doing here. That's it. I think the problem here is everything being coded, right? When he mentions the name of Dugin, therefore it is tainted in this guy's eyes, right? Oh, it must be he isn't calling Dugin an evil fascist, so he must love Dugin and blah, 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 blah. He's actually a follower of Dugin and this and that. And Marxism, everything else goes out the window.
I mean, to me, and I'm not super familiar with what Dugin even says anyway, but it seems to me like this is just tantamount to bringing up the American founding fathers and then someone saying that you support slavery.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's keep it going. Oop, I keep doing that.
Say far-right philosopher. Now, I don't think it's wrong to read and engage with right-wing philosophers, but Haas does more than that. Haas utterly adores Dugin, and so does Jackson Hinkle.
Okay, evidence. That's all I want. When does he say, I utterly adore Dugin? Dugin has some smart things to say. Some of his geopolitics based on wanting Russian sovereignty align with the views of Marxist-Leninists, etc., right? So, just not lying about Dugin is enough to, make us all evil Duginists, It's silly. He says that, I'm not against reading rightists, but then basically is.
he also adores Dugin. Why are two leaders of the American Communist Party such big fans of a far-right philosopher? And I'll give yet another red flag. Back in December, the ACP held an event where the party platform was introduced.
Okay, here comes the big meat and potatoes of this guy being what? Okay, why I think maybe he has a learning disability.
You'll recall that the ACP launched last July, which means that all the way from July to December, the ACP lacked a formal platform. This is a bit curious. A platform is kind of important, and this only further fueled the suspicions of the ACP's ideological character. If the ACP were to theoretically come to power in America, what would they actually do? What are their policies? What is their program? Haas sought to dispel all the naysayers.
Okay, very, very easy way to find this out after he made this video. You go to acp.us/program.
Presenting a platform which overall seems actually pretty decent. Cancel all debts, universal healthcare and education and housing, ending US
can you pause 1
imperialism.
second?
This is
Of course.
He's going to go on to say every single aspect of the platform is that of a genuine communist party, except for our point on Canada. And then he sort of works backwards from a conclusion and reads in that we want to sweep through the country with tanks instead of actually understanding what the position is.
Yeah, I think, and this can be a confusing one, you know. So let me explain real quick. The reason that we talk about a united socialist republic of North America, and the reason we include Canada in this and not Mexico, and specifically not Mexico, is that we see this as one civilization that has achieved different stages of revolutionary transformation in different parts of it based on the conditions prevailing on the ground within those locations. Mexico achieved its sovereignty. They achieved it. I mean, Emilio Zapata and Pancho Villa drove out their oppressors. They established Mexico. The U.S. begins this process. And as it was going on, and this guy will actually try to make the point that the U.S. was annexing Canada in like 1812 and things like that, without mentioning that, you know, the British marched down and burned the White House, for instance. That was always sort of part of this like upsurge of revolutionary energy of the time, right? The era of bourgeois revolutions was spreading like wildfire after 1776, and the stability of the United States depended on not being surrounded by enemies, right? So ideally they were like, okay, well, let's work with all of the people living there and overthrow the British there too, and they failed. And so you get Canada, which is still to this day a colony of the British Empire. If the King of England wants to, he can come in and take everything from them. Now, I know that may sound silly, but in times of crises, stranger things have happened. The second point I want to make is that as the culture of the U.S. goes, so goes Canada. As the economic development of the U.S. goes, so goes its culture. As the class struggle goes, so goes its culture, right? So we have now this civilization that has one stage which is getting ready for a transformation into the possibility of a workers' republic, of a proletarian state. And then to the north of us, we have another state that's still a British Empire. Now, if you don't, meander around under the misconceptions of stagism, you can skip the entire intervening period and go right to the Socialist Republic if we all work together. That's basically it.
Yeah.
We're not, despite memes and jokes saying like manifest destiny and all this, like without getting into an actual
Yeah.
conversation on Manifest Destiny either, because they don't understand that. It's really just the united sort of struggle of the proletariat.
Yeah, and we're not talking about this reconstitution under the current relations, which would just, you know, be tantamount to a bunch of mining leases to enrich, you know, Western capitalists. But like, correct me if I'm wrong as well, but this country, Canada, doesn't even have geopolitical sovereignty. I mean, all of the outcomes of the United States are, you know, effectively linked exactly with those of Canada.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Keep going.
Yeah.
Never mind. It's fine. Sorry, I was just confirming something with Eddie. Important stuff. Okay. So, yeah, the whole Canada thing. Look. I get why these anti-communists are confused about it. What I don't get is why they automatically assume this really silly narrative about us like dreaming of like rolling tanks into Canada. You know what I mean? Like,
also, I don't understand. Right before this point, he admits that the rest of the platform makes sense. So instead of using the rest of the platform to fill in the context that maybe we don't mean the exact same thing that he is suggesting we do regarding Canada, rather than using the one point in Canada to disavow the rest of the platform, like it makes no sense. He's just working backwards again.
Precisely. And all of this is he wanted to make a video attacking the Communist Party, and so he needed ammo. Anyway, let's go to the next. Let's see.
He gets into Haas's speech on the occupied states of America, and then after playing that through, he explains why this isn't Marxism in his view. If you want to move past the Canada point.
Yeah, let's actually listen to it, Haas's speech, and then why he thinks this isn't Marxism.
Yeah,
because I think that's important.
22. Yeah.
All right.
And it gets even stranger. I want to now turn to this speech by Haas. This speech is titled "The Occupied States of America," and
it was great. By the way, this is the first event that we did with Haas and Jackson, right? This is before the party, by the way. What that symbol that there is on the podium was a symbol of a sort of think tank that we were creating at the time called the Institute for a Free America. That's obviously been put on hold. Well, not really on hold, but we can't focus anything on it with all our energy going towards the party.
Offers a direct explanation.
This is part of the origin story, you know?
Since the ACP proclaims itself to not only be Marxist-Leninist, but the one and true authentic Marxist-Leninist party in America, you would think that this speech elucidates the principles of Marxism-Leninism, right? Well, let's take a look.
And
okay, first, no. Not every speech given by a Marxist-Leninist needs to elucidate the principles of Marxism-Leninism. This is a crowd of people there for this specific event, which was not for Marxist-Leninists, but for everybody. Haas isn't going to give them a lesson on Marxism like an asshole, right?
Yeah,
he's going to talk to them.
Wasn't there a CNN journalist there in the audience as well?
Yep, there was. This is actually where a lot of the footage from CNN's hit piece they did with Hassan Piker on us from. Anyway, let's listen.
Eventually, in the aftermath of the Civil War, almost every aspect of economic life became dependent.
You hear how much faster Haas is than this guy? Like, this is actually like the dude talks so slow. Anyway, sorry.
Actually, on banking cartels, the law of monopoly, the aggregation of various industries and forms of property, gave rise to the rise of centralization of banks and banking systems. And these banking cartels, rather than markets, were given total control over the success or failure of industrial and commercial ventures. See, a group of the wealthiest private bankers, led by J.P. Morgan, all decided that they were.
I will quibble right there just a little bit. It wasn't just Morgan, but it was the Fords and the Rockefellers as well,
and also
a few others. But the J.P. Morgan was huge in beginning this.
This concept is uncontroversial if you just read any Lenin as well. Like,
Yeah, we'll
going
get to that.
Seize control of the reins of the economy. They were seizing control of the manufacturing, the transportation, the mining, the telecommunications, the financial markets. I should also add some added context here. This cartel of bankers, this cartel of monopolists, these weren't just wealthy Americans. These were people who had extensive relationships, blood ties, and even marriages with the British oligarchy, with the powers of old Europe. But according to him, it was a goal of this elite. He even formed a secret society toward that aim of recovering the United States of America as an integral part of the British Empire. Now, they haven't done that formally speaking, but in terms of the complete co-option of our institutions in everything but name, it seems like it was pretty successful.
Now, if you understand anything about the ideas of Marxism, it's plainly clear that this is not Marxism. Marx's call for the abolition of capitalism, which is based upon the exploitation of the working class by the...
Okay, give me 1 second. I thought I had time to stretch my neck, but I do not. So, this guy is saying that this, if you're even remotely familiar with the principles of Marxism, then you should know this is not Marxism. Is that true, though? Is it true? What are the principles of Marxism? Right? What he's doing is mistaking a particular conclusion on in a particular time and place for a universal principle. So, Marxism, the actual principles of Marxism, is a dialectical analysis of development, right? What we're doing is studying how things develop. And guess what? It ain't 1863 anymore. It ain't the early era of the development of bourgeois property. We're past that stage. This is why we say Marxism-Leninism. Because in Lenin's era, finance capital had begun to develop, right? And we're going to watch an awesome video that Eddie does on this right after we get to his part on that.
Yeah.
But so finance capital begins to develop, and we're not even in that stage anymore. We're in a higher stage of that, where finance capital has gotten so contradictory, and our money is no longer even a commodity, that we've gone from the MCM circuit, money, commodities, money, reproducing our society, to money, reproducing our society. And that money, again, it's no longer a commodity. It's no longer tied to gold. What's it tied to? Debt. It is tied to debt. The Federal Reserve note you get, every single one, is a marker on value that has yet to be created. Now, if you know anything about American history, that value is never going to be created, because you know that this country, while it was being financialized, was at the same time being deindustrialized. That's the same exact process, right? Like, this is financialization, this is deindustrialization. They go up together because they're the same thing.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
I don't know. To me, it's just like someone giving a speech on the history of evolution and Darwin, and then someone's response to that being, this is not the scientific method. It's like he's just concretizing something. It's,
precisely. And if you don't think this is, like, he gives this basic like I just learned about Marxism through Wikipedia falsification that gives it away that he's never studied Marxism, yet he sort of presents himself as such an expert that he can criticize the Communist Party and say we're fake Marxists.
Yeah,
right?
It reminds me of when Eddie got into a debate with that guy Prax Ben, and he asked him to describe, like, I don't know what Marxism was or something. He just said, like, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. It's like, this is the same fucking type.
Right, exactly. And by the way, if you've ever heard this thesis, antithesis, synthesis, Marx never said it, Engels never said it, Lenin never said it, Hegel never said it. I think Kant may have said it once or twice, but it came out of Fichte. Unreal. Good. We do not want you here. Anyway, let's go.
The capitalist class. But Haas doesn't really talk about class struggle. He talks about a quote-unquote British financial cabal ruling America. He doesn't talk in terms of the capitalist class ruling over the working class. In fact, he seems to dismiss class struggle.
No, he does talk about this. This is, first of all, this is not to a group of communists. You have to understand that. So he's talking about class struggle. That's the essence of what he's talking about in terms that make sense to his audience. It's simple as that. And frankly, the ruling class is global, it is international, and it is financial. If you're not aware of this, you're just kind of stupid. I don't know what else to tell you.
In an offhand manner, declaring that this cabal oppresses Americans across class, and he seems to suggest that class struggle is actually a distraction.
40% of your personal income taxes, I didn't know this until a few years ago. It actually shocked me. It doesn't go to welfare queens. It doesn't even go to corporations not paying their fair share, or whatever Bernie Sanders says. 40% of your personal income tax goes to paying interest on the national debt. They have us fighting each other about, if you're a little more rich, you should be paying more. Oh, it's these welfare queens who are responsible for our high taxes. How is nobody talking about the fact that nearly half of every dollar that we pay is going to literally nothing?
I mean, that's a really good point. You notice he stays away from actually addressing Haas's point.
Yeah,
Instead,
wait, how does that have nothing to, how is that Haas denouncing class struggle? And the
I think what he's saying is, like, he is implying that when Haas says that they've got us all fighting each other over who's a little richer than the other, I think he's mistaking this for saying that like the proletariat and you know, anyone under the bourgeoisie should unite, which is literally like a sort of trot anti-Marxist argument against the peasantry, right? Because the peasantry of its day were middle classes. The proletariat needs allies. We are not the majority of the country. All right? Remember that. We are not the majority of the country. They weren't the majority in Russia. They certainly weren't the majority in China or Cuba or Vietnam or Korea or any of these other countries. The proletariat needs allies. Lenin's theory of the proletarian peasant alliance was brilliant Marxism and overcame all of the sort of dogmas of the so-called orthodox Marxists of the Second International, and proved for a fact with the October Revolution that Lenin was correct. All we're doing is applying Lenin to the US.
Right? It's going to the humiliation of us as a country and as a people.
And Haas repeats this theme over and over. In a Twitter thread from 2023, Haas says that MAGA communists oppose private property, which you would expect for communists. Communists have always opposed.
First of all, again, dude, sorry, my like mic stand is kind of messing up on me. Here, I'm gonna switch this a little bit, but again, Haas's threads are not the position of the Communist Party. I don't know how many times I have to say that. Like, everyone in the Communist Party, we all have different opinions on all kinds of things. I've never even read this thread, right? But I can probably think of what it means. Look, there is this dogmatic interpretation of private property, and this guy is going to give you the basic rad lib misunderstanding of private property. Private property is a relationship, right, that develops at the early era of industrial capitalism. It's also called bourgeois property, right? It's misunderstood all the time as, you know, my stuff, right? But the revolutions of the 20th century have proven something. That this does not, in an anarchistic way, get willfully abolished. And such an idea was always silly. Just as Marx says, it goes through a development of its own. And just as Stalin agrees, economic laws cannot be changed by our will. They may be used in our benefit once we understand that. And that's the point I assume that Haas is going to make, but I'm not even going to bother listening to that. I want to get to, let's see. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. Let's just watch it. You know what? Why not?
private property, though that term can be confusing and misleading. Historically, private property referred specifically to a social relationship where a private owner takes possession of property which is worked on by others. It doesn't refer to your toothbrush or television, which are personal property, but rather productive
Of course, exactly what I just said he would say.
assets like machinery and tools, or land from which rent can be extracted. Essentially, it refers to the private ownership of capital and land, something which communists want to abolish in favor of public ownership. Ha says that
No. Something that communists want to abolish in favor of private ownership. This, again, is telling on himself and his lack of understanding. We don't want to abolish anything. First, the term abolish in Marxism is kind of a misnomer, right? When Marx says that the theory of the communists can be summed up as the abolition of private property, what he's actually saying, and he explains it right there in the manifesto, is that property has developed to this point where we get to a category he calls private property, which this guy gives like a basic definition of. That's fine. You know, the theory of the communists is how this has developed and how it is now undeveloping. The contradictions within it necessitate its own undevelopment. We don't willfully just say, you can't have private property, you jerks, right? And take it all. That's crazy. We apply what we can do as far as the class struggle goes to our conditions. Look at communist China. Have they abolished private property? No. Right? However, they have, just as Marx also says in the manifesto, wrested by degree all capital from the bourgeoisie. And that is how to do it. That's exactly what you'll find in our program. This anarchistic notion of us just like willfully making declarations is nothing but LARP and midwit nonsense.
MAGA communists want to abolish your private property, but his
Also, like calling it like, is it about ACP or MAGA communists? Like, make up your mind, kid.
I have one
definition
point
of
to
a
make.
private
real
property.
Yeah.
quick. I don't know if this is exactly precise, but something I like to say to really, get people to understand the point that you just made is that communism and what we're striving for isn't really anti-capitalism explicitly. It's closer to being post-capitalism. We're sort of moving through this and sublating it and, harnessing what we can. And then eventually, when the contradictions subside, we will, generations from now, be at a point in which, this guy's vision for communism will be, achieved.
Right. I mean, this guy just sounds like a typical liberal or anarchist. Exactly, Hank. Well said. The ablation of private property is a historical process. Very simple, right? All right. Where's the part where like he talks about imperialism? That's what I want to get into.
It's 2648.
Okay. Give me a second because I also want to make sure we have Eddie's thing ready.
Also at 1341, if you want to go back, he talks about he gets in like a 3-minute rant about the Canada position on imperialism.
I don't want to go like we're starting to like look, we're gonna go long tonight.
Yeah.
But I still want to make sure we have like time for the space, and hopefully you guys can see if you can get a hold of this guy. And since he's been deleting all of the comments talking about how he's lying, maybe make him answer for this nonsense.
Yeah. Then he brings up imperialism again at 2648. But
Right.
after
Thank
that
you, PJ.
section, he sort of starts going into like LaRouche-Dugan and
Right.
spiel.
Mark said we should nationalize BlackRock, and this guy I heard no one should own their home. Yeah, exactly. And then he goes, "That's base, dude. No one should own their home." Crazy. Okay, so what was the timestamp you said? 26 something?
Yeah, 2648.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ideology. The explicit anti-Semitism is missing from the ACP's rhetoric, and I don't
Hold
think
on,
this
let's-
ideology makes sense. The
He
capitalist
basically
class
says
is
we're
not
Nazis minus explicit anti-Semitism.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
ideology. The explicit anti-Semitism is missing from the ACP's rhetoric, and I don't think this ideology necessarily needs anti-Semitism, regardless of whether this international financial cabal is defined in ethnic terms. It's still fascistic ideology and rhetoric. America is occupied by a parasitic financial elite, which Americans need to overthrow to restore traditional values, rejuvenate the country, and engage in territorial conquest.
So I don't even know where to get started with that. Like, holy crap. No, that like if you know even the first thing about Marxism, Leninism, first, fascism is the sort of dictatorship of the most reactionary elements of finance capital. Second, we are ruled over by an international cartel, not cabal, of financial elites. We just are. And we do need to overthrow them in order to restore values that American working class people genuinely care about and rejuvenate our country, to sort of found it anew. I don't know about territorial conquest. That's probably like,
it's a Canada point.
Yeah, but like that's insane that he even like this is how, and we'll get it when we watch Eddie's video, but like it's insane how stupid these people are, man.
That's a fascism, not a Marxism. It's not hyperbole to say that.
No, that is specifically not hyperbole. It's just a lie.
Not socialism. That's National Socialism.
No, it's just again a lie. This guy's
You'll
crazy,
notice too
man.
the presence of signifiers like the Great Reset, which is this right-wing boogeyman of the last few years.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we listen to him talking about the Great Reset as a right-wing boogeyman. This is precisely what mouthpieces of the ruling class want you to think, right? That, oh, the Great Reset is just a right-wing boogeyman. It's actually good. And guess what? The World Economic Forum actually use this language. They call it the Great Reset, not us, right? And this is specifically the people that we are talking about, right? This international cartel of financial institutions that are sort of interconnected with the entire supply chain of production and lord over it, and therefore all of our economies, right? They have this Great Reset agenda. They literally, like, they're the ones, like, you hear the meme, they eat the bugs and live in the pod. That's them. They used a slogan, you will own nothing and be happy. This guy agrees with these people ideologically. The problem is he's seeing, the real problem is the fake left doesn't argue against them because they are them. So he's never heard a fake leftist talking badly about the Great Reset, but any Marxist would, because it's the general bourgeois plan, right? So at the end of the day, all this guy does is anything that the fake left has called Marxism and communism, rather than looking into it himself, he's assumed this is true. And then anything outside that seems far right to him. The reason people who are afraid of the Great Reset are right wing is because people like this fucking idiot are pushing them towards it. That's it. This guy talks down to people, calls them Nazis, etc., when their rhetoric doesn't match his coded language. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I mean, you covered the point I wanted to bring up. Yeah.
In their interview on Chinese media, Jackson Hinkle and Grayson Walker talk about such things as the Great Reset and George Soros and the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, and this is all rhetoric.
Are these things fake to him? I don't understand.
What?
Like, he's acting like these things are fake. The World Economic Forum definitely is imparting their influence on countries.
Right? Like Lenin didn't name the bourgeois class of his day and talk about them. Like, this is the ruling class. Why wouldn't we talk about them?
To him, because it's not the CIA killing people and overthrowing governments directly, and instead they've had to go through these fucking institutions, then it's conspiracy.
Yeah. Unreal. Yeah. I think that's enough for now, man. Let's look at his thing about imperialism. His thing on imperialism interests me because he's basically saying that the Marxist view of fascism isn't actually fascism or isn't actually Marxism. The Marxist view of imperialism isn't actually Marxism, right? I don't know where he goes with that, but I do want to look at Eddie's video just absolutely demolishing this point. And this is why I was trying to dance around the point of imperialism and only touch bits of it, because Eddie just does such a great job. But what did you want to bring up before that?
This Tinkle Tink guy in the comments is just having fucking hysterics about drug use.
I don't know which. Did you start it?
Yeah, I started a couple of comments, but it's like a bunch of shit.
Oh man. Okay.
This person summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
But
And if you think that promoting drug use to the working class is a good thing, you are an agent of the ruling class and nothing more, in my opinion.
There's also one more comment I wanted to.
I want to go ahead and pull it up. I just want to talk on this for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
People who haven't been around lumpenized sections of society have this like libertarian sort of LARPy fantasy.
What is this?
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea what that even means. Tell you what, Tinkle Tinkle. Come to the space. We're gonna put it on in a minute here, and you can ask your questions about the Vanguard Party. So look, drugs specifically have been used by the US government in order to pacify people and destroy their communities, destroy any chance of rebellion and any chance of anti-establishment energy.
Yeah, and no one cares if you drink alcohol. It's not liberation to be able to freely use heroin. I'm sorry, right. It's not.
Precisely. And I actually had someone like telling me we need to organize the lumpen, man. And I'm like, what, you mean like drug dealers and drug addicts and stuff? He's like, yeah, why wouldn't you organize drug addicts? I'm like, have you ever been around a drug addict? Do you know what it takes to actually organize? You cannot do that. If you don't, immediately get rolled by them the minute you go try to organize. Unreal. All right, so we're about to watch Eddie's video before we get too off topic on this. Oh, hold on, Eddie.
So I've heard an alarming amount of people say recently that only a fascist would use the term finance capital. There are really people out there claiming that if you call to overthrow the financial elites, you are engaging in fascist rhetoric. Here's an example from someone who thinks I'm a fascist, as if I don't cook Nick Fuentes fans every time they come at me, which is often because they're fascists. And I'm not.
This theme of an international financial cabal bleeding the productive economy dry through usury has been a staple of fascist ideology. The explicit anti-Semitism is missing from the ACP's rhetoric, and I don't think this ideology necessarily needs anti-Semitism, regardless of whether this international financial cabal is defined in ethnic terms. It's still fascistic ideology and rhetoric.
Genuinely, that is one of the most absurd and ignorant things I have ever heard in my life. He takes a quote from Hitler where he uses the term finance capital and says that the ACP must be fascist for using the same word and talking about how exploitative the big banks are. Saying this is not a Marxist or a Marxist-Leninist argument, it's a fascist one, which would be a good argument if Lenin's imperialism didn't use the term finance capital 85 times, including an entire chapter where he defines it and explains that as capitalism develops, finance capitalists seize control of governments all around the world, stripping people of their sovereignty. which is almost the exact same argument that this guy claims is actually fascism. He genuinely thinks a call for struggle against financial elites is a coded way to call for struggle against Jewish people, ignoring all the times we've explained that finance capitalists aren't Jews, they're just people who own finance capital, many of whom are not Jewish, which is an argument that I've made repeatedly to people I know who do think Jews run the world, but this guy claims that I'm a fascist for even talking to them. And by doing this, the guy is inadvertently accepting the same logical premises as the fascists. He's implying that finance capital can't be something specific, which emerges from the development of the capitalist mode of production, which is the Marxist position, and instead says that anybody talking about the evils of finance capital must be talking about the Jews, which is an acceptance of the logical premise that finance capital equals Jews. In reality, Hitler only used the term finance capital because he was trying to steal Lenin's flow. He was saying, no, you can't just struggle against this objectively existing economic class known as finance capitalists. You actually have to struggle against the Jews. They're the real finance capitalists. In doing that, Hitler was trying to distort the meaning of finance capital, and this guy is falling right into his trap. Yes, I agree, Hitler. Finance capitalists are Jews. I will never talk about finance capital again. My guy, please, just read Lenin.
Yeah. And I mean, the problem is as well is like, these are the same people who... They constantly fall into the trap of form over actual substance, and they're the ones who so quickly denounce, you know, these people who fall into fascist ideology through their rhetoric that's convincing. You know, like, regardless of what they say, regardless of what they call themselves, the material outcomes are total opposites. These are the same people, the fascists, that got the term privatization coined. We're not for that. Regardless of if we use the same words, what are we advocating for? The opposite things.
I'm sure Nick Fuentes uses the word pizza. So do I. That doesn't mean we're the same. Oh man, back from the road. Keep your head up. He says, thanks for the 50, brother. That's amazing. You guys are outstanding tonight with this stuff, man. We really appreciate it. Especially because things are getting rough right now.
Where's
look,
someone saying that, by the way?
It's not right wing. Why? Okay, tinkle. Look, come to the space we're about to set up right now, and you can talk about your pro drug nonsense. Okay, like Jesus Christ, man, come on.
And also, I don't know why you're lumping in people who want to have a drink or whatever, or maybe smoke a joint, as if it's the same thing universally as all the people using other drugs. And besides, the ACP doesn't even have a position on that. We're talking about the cartels, you know, like, I don't know where you've gotten this from.
I think, look, just so we can like put a bow on this latest recycled nothing video that mysteriously blew up when the guy has like 5 followers. I think he makes this silly like they're Larouchists and they're Duganists and whatever thing. That's nonsense. We've explained it a million times. But the one major point he makes is that we are secretly fascists who are disguising ourselves as communists to trick communists into liking fascism. That's his main point. So let's look into that point real quick. 1, what is more and more popular and astroturfed, and because it's astroturfed, pulling in many impressionable young people right now. Literal fascism.
Yeah.
It's actually acceptable. It's pushed on social media. If this was us, why would we lie about it when we could get more popular by saying it? This is stupid. This is a very stupid way to think. 2, it's a completely it's a completely like fake left argument. Every single point he makes is based on misunderstanding what Marxism is and what communism is. So if you don't understand what Marxism is, if you don't understand what communism is, how do you even know who's a Marxist and who's not? I mean, it's very, very, very obvious. This dude was just Wikipedia-ing things, right? I mean, if you care even a little bit about class struggle, you do not act so recklessly with the truth. You do not act so recklessly in attacking the only pro-working class political force trying to organize now. It's wild to me that like people just have this confidence. And you know, I get it. It comes from participation trophies. It comes from the entitlement of the middle classes. But that era's gone. And all of you kids gotta wake up and realize it's gone. I don't know, man.
I just want to make one point. And under what conditions would it make sense for a fake communist party to rise and actually ratchet people into supporting fascism materially? It would make sense under the context in which a communist left was actually succeeding, and you know the ruling class needed some way of pulling people back into the folds of establishment politics. But the reality is the opposite of that. Fascistic rhetoric, these things have never been more popular than ever in America, at least in the last fucking 70 years. And the left has been a failed excuse for a left in God knows how long.
Yeah.
You know,
no, that's a good point. Let me just jump in. The only reason that we are here is because they failed. And so why would we want to sort of be these failures that have done nothing? They had decades and decades and decades. They did nothing. Worse, they did less than nothing. They left us with this hole we have to climb out of and all of this falsification. Sorry.
No, 100%. I agree.
All right, I'm setting up the space right now, everybody. Come on in. Share it. By the way, share the stream, share the space, hit like. I don't know why Eddie's video only has 338 likes right now, but that's insane. Why do you guys not just hit a button? Come on. Like, this video is straight up fire. It's amazing. You guys need to share it around for really real. All right, we're gonna let this this what's it called? People come in this space. I always forget how to add you as the co-host, Sebastian.
Yeah, I'm new to it as well. Maybe if you click the icon with the two people on the bottom.
Manage space. There we go. Yep. There we go. All right. I think I saw Eddie in the chat earlier. If you want to come on up too, brother, come on. I asked Carlos if he wanted to come, but he's teaching a class right now. So we're gonna let this fill up. I'm going to play Eddie's video one more time because it's that good. And I'm going to share my screen because if I don't, we won't even hear the space. But yeah, you guys can watch that. And I have to go. I got a text from my mom, and I need to make sure she's okay. That's all. So let's listen to Eddie one more time.
So I've heard an alarming amount of people say recently that only a fascist would use the term finance capital. There are really people out there claiming that if you call to overthrow the financial elites, you are engaging in fascist rhetoric. Here's an example from someone who thinks I'm a fascist, as if I don't cook Nick Fuentes fans every time they come at me, which is often because they're fascists. And I'm not.
This theme of an international financial cabal bleeding the productive economy dry through usury has been a staple of fascist ideology. The explicit anti-Semitism is missing from the ACP's rhetoric, and I don't think this ideology necessarily needs anti-Semitism, regardless of whether this international financial cabal is defined in ethnic terms. It's still fascistic ideology and rhetoric.
Genuinely, that is one of the most absurd and ignorant things I have ever heard in my life. He takes a quote from Hitler where he uses the term finance capital.
Just a heads up to anyone in
that
the
the
space.
ACP must be fascist for using
We'll be
the
taking
same
callers
word
at the
and
start one
talking
by
about how
one. So if we
exploitive
don't accept you
banks
immediately,
are.
just
Saying this is
hang
not a
tight.
Marxist or a
But
Marxist.
we don't have anyone right now,
It's
so whoever
a
wants to hop
fascist
in, just
which
request.
would be a good
shoot you in.
argument if Lenin's imperialism didn't use the term finance capital 85 times, including
Send
an
the link in the
entire
chat as
chapter
well if
where he
anyone wants to
defines
join.
it and explains that as capitalism develops, finance capitalists seize control
Okay.
of governments all around the world, stripping people of their sovereignty, which is almost the exact same argument that this guy claims is actually fascism. He genuinely thinks a call for struggle against financial elites is a coded way to call for struggle against Jewish people, ignoring all the times we've explained that finance capitalists aren't Jews, they're just people who own finance capital.
That's a great place to leave that. Okay, we got the space up and running. All of the people that have been whining and trying to argue in the chat, get in the space right now, and you can have the floor. You can tell me why we're all evil fascists.
Can you hear me through the stream? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, we got a request. Planet Xerox. I'll bring you up right quick. All right, Planet Xerox.
Hey there.
What's up? The floor is yours.
Welcome, brother.
What do you got for us?
Cool. So I'm actually a fan of you guys, so I don't have any like harsh
Awesome.
stuff to say. Hopefully that's not disappointing. So when you guys were talking about leaving the CPUSA because of how they kind of tail Democrats or funnel votes into Democrats, my big question for you guys is, what are you doing in the ACP to kind of prevent that on like a meta level in the future for ACP? Like what are the steps that need to be taken to prevent kind of a decay into that sort of system?
That's a great question. And the answer is an old one. And it's abiding by democratic centralism. We have a constitution that prevents such a thing. So long as the party is active and vital and actually pursuing its goals. We've set it up really, really focused on results, right? If us on the executive board don't get the results that we need, then our positions get voted on and we see if somebody else can do it instead. So this is how we focus on it, right? What is the actual result of the old party tailing the Democrats? It's that the class struggle decayed and did nothing. They accomplished nothing. So if their system worked like ours, those leaders would automatically be contested, right? There would be someone new being put to go against them and see if another way is going to work better. And you can check that out on our Constitution at our website at acp.us.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into that. I appreciate it, guys.
No problem, brother. Happy to help. Happy to help. I got to like adjust my screen here right quick. All right. So, where's all the, like, it's always funny to me. We get these big jibber jabbers in the chat, on X comments, etc. And then when something like this happens, they're nowhere to be found. I don't know. I have to conclude that maybe they're afraid of me. I mean, I can't think of anything else, right? Like, why would it be that they have all these crazy claims and they know they're right and they're so good and they need the world to see their brilliant analysis and criticism of us, right? Yet they have the opportunity right here. And where are they? You know, this Tinkle Tinkle guy, right? He's been yapping and yapping and yapping. Yet, when it's actually a realm where he can't just sort of like spray his statements at us, he doesn't show up. And I think there's something about that. I don't know what else it could be other than he's afraid of me. And all of these people are afraid of me. Like, I used to think, well, maybe they're just, like, sorry. Well, it was a bunch of shit. By the way, I'm kind of Sebastian's sidekick if you want to really get right down to it. But like, that's the thing. They hide behind their keyboards because they're afraid. And you know why I think they're afraid? Because they know when it comes to an actual conversation, all of the silly statements they make cannot be backed up logically by argumentation. And so they stay away from any situation in which they would be forced to have an actual conversation. I don't know. What do you think?
You're free to defend them, brother.
Yeah.
I know nothing about you. All I know is what you've said, and it's, nonsense. You've talked about positions that the ACP has not taken. You've pointed to people's individual proclivities. I don't know what else to tell you besides join the space.
Yep. I mean, all there is to it, Let's see here. How do I? Why are you guys not sharing the space? By the way, what's going on? Am I that boring? I could be. I don't know. It's just, I don't know, man. I'm so sick of it. Oh, long guy. Thank you for the 10, brother. He says, why do lib leftists always say Lenin says things like abolish patriarchy or the family? And when I ask them where he says that, they say, I need to read Angela Davis. It's happened.
You just need to read Our Prison's Obsolete again, bro.
I don't know. That's a really good question, long guy. I've been told the same thing. Like I've literally been told to read Engels' Origins of the Family for why we need to abolish the family, which is insane because Engels doesn't say that in that book or anywhere or in anything he wrote ever. That's an anti-Marxist, like sort of voluntaristic, like you're voluntarily doing something within society view. Jesus Christ, man, why? Oh, people need to give me a break. Like, I'm exhausted, guys. I am exhausted. It's always just these morons who can't handle a simple little conversation that walk around like with all the confidence in the world, having never, ever even learned the thing they're talking about, right? It's insane. Do you come across these people a lot, Sebastian, or is it, or do they just like focus on me?
I mean, I see it a lot on Twitter, but I mean, I don't really interact with that in real life. I'm not really in these sorts of spaces.
Yeah, I feel you.
But I also feel like they're not even really in real life anyway.
Well, I feel like they're only online because everywhere else, they're afraid to say these kind of things. Like, I always think about the way they talk on the internet when they're hiding safely in their home is not how they would approach us in real life. Like, I've had these people say the worst things in the world, all kinds of crazy nonsense, like, oh, blah, 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 like you're evil fascist Nazball, I hate you, and you're gonna like whatever.
Well,
and I'm like, what? Would you actually say that to me in real life?
The thing is, I feel like they just don't want to win. I mean, it's so easy to just be online, lop a grenade, from behind your keyboard and then fucking dip out. It's a lot harder to actually engage with someone in real life and talk to them about the substance behind, perhaps their more reactionary ideas and trying to elevate. You don't go up to them just calling them a fascist. What is that going to do? If there's even a 1% chance you can change their minds, that's brought down to 0 immediately when you just attack them.
Precisely. And that's ultimately the issue. I think that on a level they will never admit but know themselves, they don't genuinely believe in communism or class struggle. They don't believe it's genuinely possible and going to happen. Because I think they do it as sort of a way to have an identity, a way to engage in a subculture and become someone they feel is good, right? And that's one of the problems of the purity fetish, right? Is part of that is denouncing everything bad and outside your subculture. Look at what they actually do. What part of it gets the working class closer to power? None of it, it's crazy. And look, tinkle, 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 tinkle. If you're going, you have two options right now. We're at a little part of the night I call VC or ban. little VC or ban. That's what we do. You can lie about Sebastian, or you can, you have lied about Sebastian, right? You can say these wild things in the VC, or you can get banned from the chat. So the choice is yours, right? I'm not I believe in freedom. It's up to you, son. What do you want to do? Is it VC or ban? Because you're not going to sit there and lie about a good friend of mine and then hide from any scrutiny of those lies. You're going to get in the VC or you're going to get banned. TikTok, son, what's it going to be?
Yeah, going back to your point about advancing class struggle, I just don't know how they can reflect. Well, there's no self-reflection, but I don't know how anyone can reflect on a protest that goes against, Trump's rhetoric regarding US aid, NATO, and then call yourselves historically progressive. What all these people do is they care so much about the aesthetics that they'll go to a protest protesting Trump in particular rather than the system. The specific particular things that they're critiquing Trump about fall into two camps. Either it's just a continuation of neoliberal austerity and neoliberal economic policy that every single president has maintained, or it's the shit that he's accidentally doing that's dismantling or causing a contradiction in the present matter of affairs. And you're then critiquing something that's historically left from a very reactionary perspective and position.
Which is genuinely what they end up doing all the time. It's like, look, because it's been reduced to a subculture and we're only now beginning to build a real political left in this country. Don't get me wrong, there's not a communist movement here yet. There isn't. If you ask people what their opinion is on the American Communist Party, most of them will say, "Oh, I didn't know that existed." You know what I mean? So we're in the very early stages of rebuilding this. It's going very well so far, but it's early. So in the period before this, it got so reduced to a subculture and hollow sort of signaling, you guys have heard what we said, right? And just this cultural use of language, and when something sounds left wing, you just embrace it, and when it sounds right wing, you just hate it. That people just generally forgot how to think. I don't know how else to put it. I'm working on a paper right now on what MAGA communism means in 2025, right? And by the way, this guy, in the video we went over earlier, like routinely mixes that up with the party. There's nothing about MAGA communism in the party's anything, right? It's not, has nothing to do with it. But like in doing so, I was reading through Haas's original MAGA communism essay on Substack. It's really good. And he makes this like perfect, very simple example of this. And he says that if Breitbart wrote an article sort of supporting eugenics, it would be decried as far-right Nazism, right? But if MSNBC did that same exact thing, it would fly, and then like, you know, said it was because climate change or something, it would fly under the radar of these anti-communists who call themselves left-wing without any real pushback whatsoever. And he's right, because the substance no longer matters to these people. The only thing that matters is the appearance. It's like buying a fake leather jacket and walking around thinking you're cool with it, right? I'm like kind of making myself seem very old by like leather jacket is my thing for cool, but that's what it is. You know, it's how you can get these morons who go to a protest saying hands off NATO, hands off USAID, because they're that far gone. It's really ridiculous. And by the way, Tinkle Tinkle, you've had plenty of time to make up your mind. What is it, VC or ban? You tell me, kid. Anyway.
And one thing that highlights Haas's point to this point is that, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
No, it's all good.
Oh, no, I remember. Yeah.
What? Okay. This is what I mean by we don't have a left. Everything. Oh my God, Tinkle Tinkle, shut up. That's your choice. Like, we're just going to ban him. I am so like sick of nonsense. Sorry. You're the one spreading nonsense. Deal with it. Oh, what happened to my chat?
I'm muted.
Oh, there we go.
Are
Never
you still
mind.
streaming the space?
Yeah, of course.
Doesn't seem to be behind me.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I put it back on.
The point, in case I was muted, which I assume I was, is that, I mean, the complete hypocrisy and lack of consistency is exemplified by their treatment of Bernie and Hassan. They make these points about, you know, rhetoric over everything else, and you're using fascistic rhetoric, so you're a fascist. Look at half the, not even half, everything Bernie says about Israel. And then you have someone like Hassan, who is apparently the vanguard of the left to these liberals, and you don't. It's crickets. No one says anything about AOC and Bernie when he goes on stream with them.
No, and this is a point I really wanted to make. We do not have a left-wing movement in this country as of yet. Everything called left is subsumed to the Democratic Party, no matter how radical they think they are. Look at Hassan Piker. Perfect example. This guy thinks he is a radical Marxist, communist, whatever, right? But what is he actually doing? What is he actually achieving? He is achieving support for the Democratic Party. Like, what party are Bernie Sanders and AOC in? The Democrats. What actual ideology does he promote? That of the Democratic Party. It's Jesus Christ, people. Like, how stupid do you have to be to get taken in by this over and over and over and over again? I am exhausted talking about this fake left. I want to talk about anything else, anything in the world. Let's compare barbecue recipes. But I have to talk about these fucking weirdos, right? Because they stand in the way of class struggle.
Yeah, I mean, from personal experience, it's a million times more difficult to talk to these people than just normal people, because it's like, at least those other people know nothing. They have the common talking points about, the anti-communist talking points, but at least they don't they're not convinced that they know the right path of Marxism, that they understand it better than you and are going to lecture you about it. Like,
Right. It's I don't know, it's crazy. I think we got another person requesting.
Yep, sounds good.
By the way, anyone who wants to try to like argue that I'm not correct about this, by all means, you are welcome to try to argue it. I had to ban Tinkle Tinkle or whoever the fuck, but whoever the hell, but yeah.
Just heads up, since we're sort of running closer to the end of the show and we're not getting many callers, anyone who wants to join, just feel free. We'll probably open the floor and just collect everyone.
Yeah, that sounds good. Who do we have, by the way, Sebastian?
Dale Gribble.
Dale, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm currently working, but I think I should have good signal.
Yeah, it sounds like you may be next to a fan.
I think it's the wind. I did want to kind of add in on one of the comments that you made, especially when it comes to viewing people like Trump, Biden, AOC, and Bernie all in kind of like a vacuum. It's in some ways, it seems like that is still very, very predominant, but I have increasingly seen people kind of pushing back against that in a concept of, or effectively trying to look at them as a part of the larger picture that they're all in.
Okay, that's good.
And from what though, while it is still very common, I'm expecting, especially by around the end of the next election, we might get, or at least the midterms, we might get at least.
Oh man, you're cutting out, brother.
What do you say after the midterms?
Dale, I hope he didn't die while he was talking to us. That would be terrible. I think so. Peter, is this actually true? We just got a thing on the YouTube chat. The pumpkin spice lattes are boosting Hassan, while Hassan is boosting Bernie Sanders' liberal Zionist S. Is that, if that's actually true, that is severely messed up. Because look, don't get me wrong, I'm anti-Trotskyism, very much anti-Trotskyism. Its connections with neoconservatism are terrifying to me. It is a fake Marxism and part of one of the worst anti-communist movements of all time. But the one thing some of them get right is liberation of Palestine. And so for them to be boosting a fucking Zionist is absolutely inhuman. I don't know.
Sorry, that Dale is back, and I also accepted Joey as a speaker.
Tight. What's up, Dale? Sorry, can you, dude? You got to get like a shield for your phone or something,
Just
brother.
cup your hand over there.
Yeah.
It sounds a little better.
One of the things that I at least kind of noticed is increasingly there is even outside of our circles a increasing trend of people being just tired of Bernie.
Yeah.
And the whole idea.
I think you're right. I think everyone is.
And I mean, I was having this discussion with a couple of friends who still have faith in Bernie, and it's like he played perhaps a historically progressive role in 2016 where, there wasn't really even the broad consciousness that people were exposed to, the system screwing us and even nascent class consciousness. But in 2025, where, he's already gotten screwed out of 2 primaries, or we already understand this broadly, like all he's doing now is as a ratchet for the Democratic Party. we don't need him. We can relegate him to the dustbin of history.
I mean, end of the day, that's all he ever was. Like, I remember, like my parents were sort of like kind of optimistic about him, and then he sides with the Clintons and the massacre of Yugoslavs.
Yeah.
Right? This is when a lot of people broke with Bernie. And after that, my dad was like, no. The guy was always a fraud. He must have always been a fraud. My opinion is if there was ever anything real about him, the Democrats took it.
And I mean, it doesn't even have to be anything with his intent to do anything productive. I feel like he was always sort of this way, but at least in 2016, we can say that he pushed a lot of people to doing something productive. I mean, we don't have the Eddie and Carlos of today without, what he was able to do and represent for them. And I mean, to that, I say thanks for the memories, Bernie, but
yeah,
get out of the way.
Good
If
point.
you were really serious, you would bow out of the Congress and maybe support something that's actually productive. Try to build something outside of establishment politics.
Look, if he were
You're over 80,
serious,
you have enough money. Get out of the way.
straight up, if he were serious, he would be donating his money to the American Communist Party.
Yeah.
And I'm not joking about that. People are going to be like, funny joke, Noah. I'm goddamn serious. Message from me to Bernie Sanders. If you care about the American working class, give us your money. You got millions. The working class don't. You really want to fight the millionaires and billionaires? Well, come on down. Let's do it. You know what we could do with those millions of dollars that you have? Good question, Mike. How come you get to call people who fall back into voting for Democrats stupid, but I get scolded for calling people who thought Donald Trump was could be a peace candidate the dupe of the century? Because what I'm describing is something happening now. If people learn from their mistakes, that's fine. What you're doing plays into it also plays into the common sort of narratives of the fake left, that you're smarter than everybody and you know better, right? When I'm calling people stupid, it's precisely for falling into that and falling with the ruling class. Now, if you thought Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump could bring peace and then you were like, oh, wait, they're not, then okay, that's fine. But if you're saying like some random person, and this is outside of, us as communists or whatever you are, like if you're calling just random working class people stupid for believing in something that during a time of desperation and the need for hope, then yeah, I'm going to scold you for that because you deserve scolded. I mean, sorry.
There's also a very big difference between, just a random liberal voter who was duped into thinking that Biden was the lesser of two evils, and someone who calls himself a communist and is functioning as an anti-communist.
Right. Very good point, brother. Very good point. Joey's here. What's up, Joey? I just saw you.
Hey, Noah. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. How you doing? I've heard excellent things about you lately, by the way.
I appreciate it. I am humbled by you saying that. I actually had a question that was posed to me by one of my comrades at our reading group over in the ACPA reserves. I wanted to forward it to you. He asked it for our chat, but I figured that this is kind of a slightly related question to today's topic. So, not referring to Bernie Sanders himself, but you have Bernie Sanders and AOC going to these rallies or whatever across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my comrade's question was, what is ACP's response in the regards of the people that are going to these things? Because we had before the ACP, when MAGA communism and infrared was bringing that about to the forefront. They went to Trump rallies and they were not, presenting themselves as ACP, of course, especially being it didn't exist, but they were interacting with these people. My comrade basically implied that there are some progressive elements, populist elements to these rallies, not from Bernie Sanders and AOC as we've gone through today, obviously, but at least the fan base of these two politicians. Does the ACP have like an idea of how we're going to respond to these rallies, if at all?
That's a really, really good question, brother. I think, look, there's no official policy or position right now, but I can give you my opinion. And my opinion is that the communist goes to the working class wherever it is in motion, and it brings up the property question. Just like we did at Trump rallies, we can do that here too. Oh crap! And I just realized Comrade Kate, Sebastian's mic isn't low. Mine is just loud. We'll have that fixed next time. I apologize for that.
And also, when we're on the space, I have to speak through the Twitter space. I have to mute myself on StreamYard.
Good point too. But yeah, Joey. For me, I think that is a great opportunity to go there and ask people why Bernie never delivered last time, why he's never delivered this ever, why AOC got in office and then refused to force the vote for Medicare for all, why everything she's done has just been what Nancy Pelosi wanted. Didn't she promise us to, quote, raise a ruckus? Didn't she promise us to fight for the working class and actual material improvement of our lives? She did. So I would say, even if you get someone who's very attached to them as people and you don't take that route, it's good to go there and bring up the fact that, look, politicians have been telling us they'll fix all our problems for, decades and centuries now. And they haven't. It's gotten worse. If we're going to change anything, we're going to change it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And I just have a small point to bring up as well. And I mean, this is precisely, I think, the idea behind Eddie, for instance, reaching out to Hassan. And I mean, if he weren't such a bold-faced opportunist, he could function as that. He has such a large audience that, do believe in, at least progressive ideals, but, functionally they always go back to supporting Bernie and AOC, but partially because Hassan isn't willing to meaningfully break with them. And if he were to listen to Eddie and get on board with what we're doing here, he could tell his audience precisely what Noah said just now.
Yep. And here's the thing. Look, I don't trust Hassan. I got nothing. Well, I do have something against the guy since he lies about the party constantly to a massive audience, but I don't trust soft-handed rich kids. Never have, never will. I can be polite with them. I can, talk with them, but I will never trust them. When you grow up in the atmosphere that he grew up in, that's an issue for me, because that's an atmosphere where you don't look at regular working class people like us as the same level of humanity as you. Whether you think you do when you talk about the proletariat in the abstract or not, you do not. This is why Hassan, for me anyway, this is why he has millions and millions of dollars. And rather than using it to build the Communist Party, donating it, doing whatever, he keeps it. And he sits around playing video games and talking all day. Anyway, does anyone have any last questions or comments? Because we're already like a half hour over time, and we gotta call it a night here. That was a great question, by the way, Joey. Anything else?
I see Joey raising his hand.
Yeah, you don't gotta raise your hand, brother. Just go.
Oh, I actually was putting my thumbs down, saying I didn't have anything to say, but thank you for having me on. And like I said, I am humbled by what you said. I greatly appreciate that, Noah.
Thanks, brother. And thank you for coming and talking with us. Keep up the good work, man. Really.
I will keep doing my best. As Ref needs me to do work, I will continue working, doing whatever I can.
Sounds good, brother. Take care. All right, everybody. That's it for us for the night. I'm sure by next week we will have many more anti-communists pretending to be communists and then lying about the Communist Party, and we will make fun of them as we always do. Have a great week, everybody. Take us out, Sebastian.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll have another space next week, so if we didn't get to you, I see someone is requesting. Just try to join back around maybe 7 p.m. next week on Monday. And thanks everyone for watching, and thanks for all the super stickers and donations.
Bye, everybody.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken, now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in the song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the field. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in a song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The International ideal